Hello friends, Steve Stockton here with you. Welcome to our latest video. In this episode, we're going to be looking at Nahanni Valley, aka Headless Valley. Join me. Let's take a walk and see. Nahanni National Park in Northwest Territories, Canada, is a relatively unknown and unpopular national park seated in the rugged Yukon. So remote is this land that it can only be accessed by foot or chartered planes. In the last decade, there have only been 9,305 registered visitors in the park. That's actually from 2010 to 2020. The remoteness of Nahanni Valley means the land is most pristine, and there are areas that humans have never laid eyes on. One of the first national parks to become a World Heritage Site, Nahanni National Park Reserve is home to Virginia Falls, a waterfall twice the height of Niagara Falls, and Rabbit Kettle Hot Springs, where visitors can take a dip, but the area is a Zone 1 protected preservation site, meaning visitors must be accompanied by park staff and can't wear shoes as to disturb the flora. There are 4 canyons in Nahanni Park, simply known as First, Second, Third, and Fourth Canyons, and which the Flat and South Nahanni rivers flow through. The park also hosts several species of animals, from timber wolves to caribou. There are a variety of protected species within the park. Some visiting and some are stationary, live there year-round. However, the remoteness of Nahanni National Park Reserve has given way to many tragic tales and lore over the centuries. Missing and murdered people, entire First Nations tribes that have left villages behind and were never seen again, prospectors scared so badly they vowed never to return to the area, and even headless bodies discovered throughout the park. These stories have been told time and time again to would-be visitors of the area before it was even a park. These tales are documented in several books, and theories about the mysterious deaths and disappearances in this utopian land have made publications and documentaries popular on the subject. Also known as Headless Valley, the name itself should be a precursor to the tragic events that unfolded in the deep Yukon of Canada. Also dubbed the Valley of Mystery, or simply Nahanni Valley, tragedy has befallen many that have traveled through the wilds in this remote part of Canada. Now, exploring Nahanni Valley isn't easy. To do so, one must travel to the spot where the Yukon, British Columbia, and the Northwest Territories converge. Located deep in the Canadian wilderness, this valley of mystery and death holds such a notorious reputation that most Canadians will not travel to the area, and the mere mention of the name draws horrified stares. The Valley of Mystery, as if that wasn't an ominous enough name, has a third name that was given to the area because of the tragedies that have plagued the area, Headless Valley. And as many locals know, it has a dark past steeped in tragedies, missing people, and murders so gruesome people avoid the cursed land and warn would-be speculators to do the same. The landscape is deceptively beautiful, but even from the safety of a plane, one can sense a foreboding shadow cast over the land, if only flying over the area. Tales and lore of missing people, headless bodies discovered, and one woman driven so mad she lost all sense of humanism and runs wild through the forest with a crazed look observed by those that have said they saw her. Here are just a few stories, tales, and folklore that gives Headless Valley its reputation and its name. The first humans to settle in the area were said to be the Naha tribe. At war with the Naha tribe, the Dene decided to enact a sneak attack, as the Naha were said to be fierce warriors, and to kill many of the Dene tribesmen for land and other commodities. The Dene made their way into the Naha encampment, only to find it devoid of any human life. This discovery shook the Dene to the core. How could an entire village go missing without a trace? The Dene retreated and never returned to the area, as they deemed it cursed. By this time, the Dene had recalled the tales of cannibalism and evil spirits. This alone would keep the tribe from taking over the land. The Naha tribe was never seen nor heard from again. Decades later, the USGS, or United States Geological Survey, released a statement saying that a virulent strain of meningitis was responsible for the demise of the Naha tribe. Other tales told by travelers through the South Nahanni Valley area were of a paradise of sorts. Lush lands with several species of game prime for the taking, hot springs bubbling with steamed heat, a welcoming sight in such cold, inhospitable climate. Snow was said to have never touched the ground in this utopia. A mist blanketed the area like a dome that held all the secrets within. Saloon talk from fur traders would turn to these eyewitness accounts, some even bringing evidence of mastodon ivory with fur and meat still attached to the trunks. As these frontiersmen plied business with the Dene, the First Nations men would warn them of the cursed land where they had found the empty camp. This was no never mind to the bravest of the men, as in 1897, gold rush fever hit the area, and people came from all over the world to pan for riches. Stampeders was the name given to the folks that prospected the area, and indeed they would traverse some of the most treacherous paths and mountain ranges to get to the gold there in the Yukon. It was during this time that tales of the Utopia began to become popular, but warnings from the First Nations people kept most from searching for Paradise Valley. Despite the warnings from these tribesmen, men and women alike trekked the South Nahanni River Valley, panning for gold and in search of McLeod's mine. You see, in 1904 and 1905, brothers Willie and Frank McLeod geared up for some prospecting the Forsaken area, along with Scottish engineer and partner Weir, only known by his surname, and unfortunately they were never seen alive again. 3 years later, the McLeod's younger brother Charlie, fearing the worst, summoned a search party and headed out to look for his missing family members. The men in this search party consisted of ex-Mounties, trappers, and First Nations people that knew the area well. As they made their way across the valley, the mood became serious. Most knew at this point they were looking for remains, as it had been 3 years since the brothers went missing. They traveled for weeks just to find the two brothers sprawled on the shoreline, missing their heads, so the legend says. In actuality, the brothers had been shot as they lay sleeping in their blankets on the shoreline of the river in the aptly named Dead Man's Valley. Willie's pocket watch, still swayed above his head, hung from a tree branch as if waiting to be of importance again. The South Nahanni Valley became known as Headless Valley from that day forward, despite the evidence to the contrary for most deaths in the area. Prospectors and fur traders alike speculated as to who could be responsible for such acts of violence, whether it be shootings, stabbings, beheadings, or those that simply just disappeared. Everyone from a lone, gold-hungry prospector looking to protect his loot to a First Nations tribe thought to be long extinct were blamed for these gruesome crimes. Conjecture swirled through Nome and Fairbanks as well as the Klondike of a lost mine that the deceased brothers happened upon, and that was why they met their grisly fate. But no one knows for sure, and rumors would abound for decades to come. In the meantime, another prospector by the name of Martin Jorgensen came to the Nahanni to strike it rich in mining, only to be the third victim of a beheading. The cabin he was staying in was burned to the ground, and just like the McLeod brothers, his head was never located. The latest death only added fuel to the rumor mill about who or what was responsible and why the bodies were missing their heads, and just where those heads were. Some would blame wolves for taking the heads, but others speculated it was perhaps Nahanni tribesmen, while others swore it was the strange beast that resided in the area, protecting the riches of the land that men came to take from them. Far and wide, from the reaches of the Great Bering Sea all the way to the eastern shores of Nova Scotia, future prospectors were warned time and again of the dangers surrounding Headless Valley. These stories and lore tales didn't stop the influx of people coming to strike it rich, though. Another prospector by the name of John O'Brien was found hunched over an unlit fire pit, match in hand, dead as he sat seemingly frozen in suspended animation. In 1945, a man named Ernest Savard was found in his sleeping bag, also missing his head, severed at the shoulders. Yet another victim of the Headless Valley. There was also the disappearances of those like Bill Epler and Joe Mulholland, fur trappers from parts unknown, that went missing and were simply never found. These deaths and disappearances further lent credence to the horrors and speculation by locals that Headless Valley was indeed cursed and thus should be avoided no matter how much gold was in those hills. As the years gave way to decades, the 1960s and 1970s saw scientists, explorers, and outdoor enthusiasts descend on Headless Valley. The pristine condition of the land and water made for prime expeditions. Scientists, though, would return home with tales of beasts that live in the forests of the Nahanni Valley. The Nukluk was one such monster said to be from a cannibal tribe that lived in caves, hunting and devouring humans. Speculation as to why bodies of the missing were never found made this beast even more believable to people. As if being chased and eaten by a sledgehammer-carrying cannibal wasn't terrifying enough, those encountering the Wahila were sure to make anyone wanting to explore Nahanni Valley think twice about going there. Described as a wolf-like bear dog of the local Inuit people, this monster is said to be carnivorous and have teeth that can crush even the toughest of human bones. Safe to say, this has kept most sensible people away from Headless Valley, and in the safety of towns where they were able to hear the fantastical stories but didn't have to live them. Missing prospectors and travelers in the Flat and Nahanni River areas have been reported for decades to authorities. Some remnants would be found weeks, months, or even years later. Some would never be found, and some would simply become a legend due to the mysterious way they went missing. Such is the story of a woman that was prospecting in the Headless Valley when she went missing. In 1926, Annie Lefert joined a prospecting group to pan the Flat River. She is said to have ventured into the forest and was never heard from again. Years later, a First Nations member named Big Charlie stated he saw the woman climbing up a cliffside, nude, and seeming to have lost her mind. He had observed the woman running unabated through the forest as if escaping from an unseen force. He further went on to say her eyes were wild in their sunken sockets, darting to and fro. Her bloodied hands clawed at the rock face as she scaled the cliff and went out of sight. The scene chilled Big Charlie to the core. He gathered his camp and headed back to the safety of his home. In another lore tale of hauntings, it said that an unnamed victim can be seen on stormy nights roaming the riverbanks of the South Nahanni, searching for his stolen gold. The only noise from this figure is the squeak from his lantern handle that swings back and forth, hanging from his see-through hand. Yet another tale says that shots can be heard ringing out off the canyon walls as a ghostly battle takes place from centuries ago, repeating over and over, said to be prospectors protecting their take of gold while fending off would-be thieves. This is claimed to be heard on certain nights when the wind whirls about and the cold Arctic air starts to creep in, settling in your bones. The cries of those men drawing their last breaths will cause a shiver up your spine long before the cold night can seep in. Know before you go. This is a very remote destination and is near the Arctic region, which can see temperatures drop even in summer months to well below freezing. If you go to explore these tales of Nahanni Valley National Park, remember to abide by all the park rules. Take precautions for the area. Extra clothing, a water purification system, waxhead matches, even dryer lint to help start a fire more quickly, bear spray, a topo map, compass, communication system, extra protein, nuts are a light and good source, foot warmers, as feet and hands are one of the first extremities to suffer frostbite, and of course a personal location device. All these could help save your life should the need arise. Be aware of your surroundings as this is grizzly country. Stay on designated paths and tell someone where you're going as well as your itinerary. Don't become Nahanni Valley's next victim. Well, folks, there you have it. What do you think of these strange stories coming out of the Nahanni Valley? I look forward to your comments. Please keep it friendly and respectful. Till we meet again, be good to yourselves and each other. Don't go losing your head. As for me, I'll see you a little further on down the trail. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'll talk to you next time. Tell your animals I said hi.